Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's another beautiful day for the Pirate Broadcast. And we got a new pirate in the room today. And I caught this individual on Gabriel's show, Made from Scratch, the Made from Scratch broadcast. Thank you, Gabriel, for introductions and sharing this wonderful gift. And so Reena is an amazing individual that is doing some things to help entrepreneurs push the boundaries, get out there and do some bigger, better, and more grander things. So Reena, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's amazing because I love interviewing interesting people doing interesting things, and you're doing a couple of things, and you've had some interesting backgrounds, and you've really assisted a lot of people in kind of highlighting their skill sets and, you know, building it up. And also you had this experience with Jerry Springer, and it's like some funny stories that you were sharing on Gabriel's thing. And also you have a podcast coming up, or has it launched already?
So I haven't launched it yet. And with all that's been happening in the news, I was like, maybe I should wait a little bit longer.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. So mother of four, so you're very busy, you're very active. And so also you're passionate about helping entrepreneurs. So talk a little bit about how you evolved into this whole arena of, entrepreneur and mother and helping people out, and what your passion is today.
It's been an interesting path. I wrote down on the notebook right before I started. I've gone from producer of television to producer of insurance to producer of events to producer of the home. And it's been an interesting path.
You're just a producer.
I'm a producer. I'm thinking I should just go with producer. I'm producing a lot of things. Now I'm producing a podcast too.
Oh, that's fantastic. So tell us the backstory on the podcast, and also what's the direction you're going to be taking this podcast, and how can we help you grow your audience on that?
Thank you. So really the idea behind the podcast was my dad is who I call for all my advice. And he and his parents ran a company for 45 years. So that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit, is watching my dad from the time I was a child running a company and what that was like. And, you know, for me, entrepreneurship kind of evolved where all of the projects that I was doing for other people, then others saw that. I shared my journey. I shared the things that I was up to, and people started coming to me in my DMs and asking me to do things. They're like, hey, can you help me with my profile? Hey, can you help me with a blog post? Hey, do you do events? Hey, can you help me market an event? Hey, can you help me sponsor for an event? Hey, can you? And honestly, I was just like, sure. And then I figured out what I liked doing, what I didn't like doing. I even had a customer ask me to go full time with them. And then I was like, ooh, that worked better as you being my client versus me reporting to you. I've learned so many things along the way, you know?
So I love this concept of and I have a son, and it kind of sparks an interest, because I tell people, if you don't know what you want to do, or you don't know what you're interested in, really, because it's like almost like asking the high school student, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? You have a thought about something, and until you've actually done it, you really don't know if that's what you want to do, right? And having the experience as an entrepreneur and being able to say yes to a lot of different things allows you to kind of cultivate and nurture some of these ideas and these feelings and emotions around, what is it that I really want to do with my time day after day? Is it a creative space? Is it a some people like finance and working in spreadsheets and they're very, detail oriented. And so what is your superpower? What do you love to do if you were just given free reign and an open day to do anything? What do you feel like you want to bring to the world?
My first reaction to that is I love bringing people to the party. I am the
Ooh,
one that gets people through the door.
that's
And that
fantastic.
applies to a lot of industries.
Oh, it's universal. It's universal. So how does that show up in today's current environment? Because that's a superpower in itself, bringing people together and making that connection, bringing those connections together. However, it's kind of a unique adjustment that we're going through right now. So how can we do that in a virtual way? Have you seen, or how are you thinking
Right.
about
So
doing
before COVID,
it?
I was helping, plan events and summits and literally bringing people to the party.
Yeah.
Now I'm working with an author and helping her get blurbs for her book. So I am reaching out behind the scenes and talking to publicists and best-selling authors and podcasters who, you know, I might have been meeting with in person prior.
And it's a unique proposition because now we have to do things virtually. And I think a lot more people are becoming comfortable with that process. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and I'm glad because I have worked for companies where they wanted to give me 8 work from home days. And I'm like, I have at the time 3 kids. One gets sick, and all my work from home days are going to be gone for the year.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Well, I know, I mean, I've been a remote worker for well over a decade, and I worked in corporate environments and all kinds of different circumstances. And for myself, this hasn't been a big transition. However, it's been a big transition for a lot of other people that I'm working with. So, that kind of has an impact on the way we think about how we're going to schedule things, how we're going to have communications, how we're going to plan our activities and our events. I just had recently yesterday with the oil and gas industry, we had a 3-hour long podcasting summit that was held live, and Deloitte, and it was people from all over the world and connecting on this summit. And the logistics and the organization still has to take place. The connections still have to take place. So as a connector, it's still a viable process. It's still a viable opportunity. And so it's still needed and necessary. So
I think some of these big organizations are going to rethink things. And I think some of these big podcasters who were flying out to interview guests are now going to want to do Zoom. It's
yeah,
going to save them on their budget. It's going to allow them to connect with more people. I talked to a guy who I interviewed with the week before lockdown,
uh-huh,
and he produced a huge event here in Chicago. I'm talking 30,000 people.
right.
And they're now doing these things on a smaller scale online. And right before COVID, I was even talking to him about virtual summits and about podcasts. And they pulled it together because they had the technology and team to do it. And I think some people that didn't have those things in place, it may have taken them a little longer. But I think everyone, every company, every organization is going to have to consider this option for the
Well,
future.
it's almost I won't say ironic. However, I was live streaming 5 years ago, and I was live streaming high school varsity games, sports events, and I was live streaming them to a radio station, and then we would broadcast them on AM radio. And I was attempting to go out to business owners and say, hey, you could have your own internal radio station so the CEO could talk to the audience, or HR could talk to uh, the teams out in the fields, or you could broadcast these events to build culture in your organization, these large organizations. And everybody was kind of like, we don't need to do that. We'll send out a newsletter or something like that. And now, I was just a little ahead of my time, I think, because now companies are starting to see how they can fit that into their arena of communications. Video is more prevalent. We're doing this. You're in Chicago. I'm here in Arizona. It doesn't matter as much about where we are as about what we can do together and what kind of things we can create along the way.
People
So do you see
are
more of that?
starting to expect it too. They're like, if I can't attend your event, is there a live stream? They're starting
Yeah.
to ask for that. And if they can't make the live stream, can I watch the recording? I'll even pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so live streaming events and summits I've seen a lot of them, and I see a lot of Zoom happy hours, and and some days I actually have to say that I almost have burnout from Zoom activities. It's like I got too many Zoom activities today, so it's I've been using Zoom for years on masterminds because I have masterminds a couple of times a week, and uh, hosting these events is normal for me. And there's a lot of people coming on board that don't necessarily, they're not comfortable with the concept. They're not comfortable with working at home. They're not comfortable with all of these activities. And it does take a shift. So, uh, are you thinking about exploring that and expanding your business around that then?
You know what's interesting? Since I've started doing the podcasting, I have realized that if I have a new client that wants to have a discovery call with me and I see potential with their connections and with their work history, I'll ask them on the call, is it cool if I just record this? Because some good material might come out of it that I can use, and I'll send it to you after. And I have had now a couple conversations that now I can use for my podcast because the conversations went so well, and now I want to work with those people. And I
Yeah.
was glad that I recorded them.
And I think a lot more people, especially broadcasters, podcasters and people in this space are identifying that building a community and having connections in improving your engagement is really the secret sauce of why we do this. It's not necessarily millions of downloads, and that's nice. However, it's not necessarily the thing that's going to provide you joy or bring you revenue and really allow you to help more people. It's the opportunity to actually engage and build relationships. So I think that's really important for us to understand. I want to just hop over here and so there's some people here saying, good morning, Russ and Reena. There's
Awesome.
all over. Suki, Angie, good morning, everyone. Don't wait, just do it. Adam Posner's in the room. My people. Awesome. The Poscast. We call him the Posmaster. And Pat Foran's in the room. Jill Sullivan, thank you so much for being here. Wendy's here. Thank you for the shout out. Love it. Carolyn Gray from Houston. How are you, Carolyn? SB. Hola. Gabriel, there he is. Hello, folks.
Aw.
So, hey, Gabriel. Arcott's here. Now it's imperative that we got here. So it's
I love that you were live streaming sporting events. That's another thing, for me, I have a baby, so I've had to stay home with the baby while my husband goes to some of the sporting events where I wish I could be there cheering on my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I would love, oh, nice. Somebody said they wanted to do a discovery call. I would love to be able to watch that moment where my son might make the one basket of the game.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the things that we're doing in our lives now is, we have to, this whole COVID thing is, I think, caused us to think about and reflect on what is it we really want to spend our time doing?
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? And so, spending time with the kids and the family and everything else is really important and key to our, and then companies are going to have to think about, okay, I got, all this real estate that is empty right now, and my business is still working, and it's still, functioning. And so how is that going to play out in the future, so I don't know. I mean, uh, have you had any experiences or conversations around businesses that are making changes or planning on evolving and making
I mean, even in
adjustments?
my husband's startup that he's working for, people have left Chicago and gone other places, and they're like, I'm not sure I want to come back to Chicago now that this is a option to work from home indefinitely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like rethink what it needs to what work needs to look like,
And the
right?
commute time, truthfully, of
Oh,
getting on the train an hour each way is
yeah.
so unnecessary, and paying for a shared workspace, which is 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
Do
It's
you
insane.
really need to schmooze the investors for that
Yeah.
price tag?
I don't know. You could buy a lot of technology, talent for the price that you're paying for real estate. So I think it does, though. Like yourself. You're talking about your stay at home, and being a mother, and kids around. I think a lot more people are. I think a little more empathetic about you know, the chaos that could go on in the video background, and the idea that, hey, we're still having life here. Life is going on and things are taking place. And I've been on some Zoom sessions. I'm here caring for my parents, and my dad has dementia. And so on occasion, he would walk in and ask me questions. And I'd be on a Zoom session, and everybody knows me. It's like, "Oh, Dad, sorry, I don't know." It's like,
I commend you for doing that. Actually, my dad is helping take care of my grandmother, and my grandfather had dementia. And I've watched my dad take care of my parents. I've watched
yeah,
him have to manage their estates and close
yeah,
down their business that they ran for 45 years and sell off all that equipment and learn how to
yeah,
reinvent himself. And that
yeah,
also really plays into my story of Better Call Daddy, because
yeah,
the amount that I have seen my dad manage and how he is so good with people and so positive with reinventing himself, and the way that he takes care of his parents and his children. He's actually watching my three oldest kids. He drove from Kentucky to Chicago and picked up my kids for 2 weeks. I mean, he just gives
Oh,
so
that's
much to
awesome.
others
That is so awesome.
that I want to share my curiosity with him about the people that I want to interview and get his take on things.
Yeah. That's a very heartwarming story. I love that idea because, um, I know that there are a lot of people that have gone through a lot of challenging moments a lot of times. And when you have somebody like that in your life that you can call at any moment and say, "What do you think about this? How am I going to get through this?" And it's not necessarily the answer that you want to hear. However, it's the wisdom behind the answer, right? I mean, is that how you think about it, or how do you
My
think?
dad tells it to me straight. I can literally call him screaming, crying, any state of mind, and he can handle it.
And he'll listen to you. He'll just
There's
listen.
been very few times that he has actually hung up on me. And so, yeah, he's loved me through Jerry Springer and Los Angeles and difficult clients and not getting into a youth performing arts school and getting me a second audition. He's had to chase money. He's hired people out of prison. He's
Yeah,
dealt with people that weren't really citizens of the country and how to navigate investigations. I mean, my dad has dealt with so many real life issues, and I
Yeah.
feel like he has perspective to offer.
It's a broad perspective. So how do you anticipate, I mean, what's the format of the show, first of all? Is it that are you talking to your dad, or are you just talking about the questions you would ask your dad?
So the first episode, I mean,
I'm
you
curious
evolve,
about this.
right? The
Yeah.
first episode, I was like, oh, let me just catch up with a girlfriend that I haven't talked to in 20 years. She has 3 kids by 3 different dads. There's a story there.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell my dad about it, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, when you tell someone a story, it's your interpretation of how that story went, right? So
Yeah.
I did that with the first 4. And then I'm like, Dad, you really got to listen to the whole interview because I'm not giving you the details. And you're going to have a better reaction if you actually listen to their whole story. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just have my dad be quiet on the call, put him on mute, and then he's going to have a more genuine reaction and it's happening in real time. So I tried that.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just have him listen to the edited version. Like I've cut down an hour of footage into 15 minutes. That's more digestible. I'll give him that. And then we'll riff. Like I'll ask him some stories that have recently happened in his life, and maybe I can edit that to the end of it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like promo, edited version, dad reaction, a little bit of commentary.
I love the fact that you're doing it with your dad, though. That's a fascinating story in itself. And I know that, I mean, you have to have some stories from Jerry Springer that, kind of can illuminate how life evolves for some people and how crazy it can actually become. So any big takeaways from your experience in that episode in
Jerry
LA and
Springer
everything?
was my training ground for life. It was my first job out of college.
Uh-huh.
And, I started off as an intern. So
Yeah.
I went from intern to producer in one season. I learned all of the different roles. I learned
Oh,
how
wow.
to book a guest, how to take them around town, how to babysit them when they get kicked out of hotels, how to talk them back into doing the show when they find each other in the street, how to manage
Oh,
$80,000 budgets. I was
that is
at
insane.
Jerry Springer during 9/11.
Oh, wow.
We had guests in town that had to be babysat for an extra week or 2.
Adult daycare, so to speak, huh?
Right. I mean, it's funny because I'm still in touch with producers that I worked with. My old intern is now the senior producer of the court TV show that Jerry is now doing.
Oh, wow.
And I worked on the Steve Wilkos pilot. He was the security guard with the bald head that everybody rubbed.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting his own show.
Nice. Nice.
Um,
There's a lot more. I think Jerry Springer was probably one of the first and, the reality TV genres that kind of, launched a lot of these other productions along the way. Cause I mean, there's so many that have evolved as a result of that time and probably, cause the production isn't as massive as, some of the daytime TVs and, some of the bigger shows. And I have to imagine that, personalities are out there.
And truthfully, with my show, I mean, I was kind of inspired by that idea. I mean, my podcast isn't going to be cheating stories, but I have interviewed sex workers and phone sex operators, and I want to interview transsexuals and people who have lost babies full term. And I want to talk about some controversial things. So it might not be for everyone.
Sure. And that's what adds the spice of life is being able to look at those dimensions and identify. That's the whole point of the pirate broadcast is interesting people doing interesting things. And it's mostly around what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they got there. Because, it's always fascinating because you don't always see the story behind the story. All of the experiences that your dad's had in his experience in his business and how growing up and observing it, you see it from a different perspective than someone that doesn't have any experience around that. It's like, okay, we worked in construction. My dad was in construction and I grew up in construction and, my Saturdays were spent laying out buildings for new construction. And it's like, okay, yeah, Saturday cartoons. Nah, it didn't happen. It's like, I was pulling a tape measure across a open plot of land somewhere. So it's all of these experiences that we have just fascinate me, and how you evolve and how you arrive at these destinations. It's always crazy. So I
You know,
love the
it's
fact that
funny,
you're doing it.
on Saturday morning, my mom got pregnant with me at 18. And so my grandparents, all four of them, I'm very lucky to have grown up with them all, very short distance from my house. And so I spent pretty much every weekend at my grandparents' house. They had a little mattress on the floor in their bedroom for me. And I would wake up to my grandmother on one of those old typewriters typing out time cards. She would every Saturday morning, I
Oh,
would hear,
wow.
the news on the television. My grandfather would watch the news and he'd be reading the paper, and my grandmother would by hand be doing all of the time cards of the employees. That's when she caught up with her office work on the weekend.
Yeah,
6 a.m.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And all of these little dimensions. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about how some of these industries where you have to kind of know from experience what's taking place. There's probably a lot of kids that don't even know what a typewriter is. And you think about that, it's like, really, you don't. I mean, and it's true. It's like they've never seen a typewriter. I mean, and that kind of blows my mind when I even think about it. So it's crazy. So Gabriel's going. She's such a risk taker. Ask her about Steve. Steve from the Jerry Springer Show. That's okay, bro. Hey, Russ, tell her lighting is wonderful. So then Wendy says, yeah, me too, picking up scrap. Yeah, straightening nails. Hello there, friend. It's amazing that we have all of these opportunities and all of the amazing stories that we can tell, and I applaud your adventures and your activities with your dad, especially. I think it's going to be heartwarming. So, how do people get a hold of you,
I
Reena?
am a LinkedIn-aholic. I've been building my presence on LinkedIn for a while. I've used it with my last three
Oh
jobs.
yeah,
So LinkedIn is good. Reena Friedman Watts.
fantastic.
Also, I've been working on a little bit of an Instagram presence. So same name there, Reena Friedman Watts.
Okay.
And I started a Facebook community, which has been a blast. And I'm calling it right now Business Laughs and LinkedIn.
Oh, fantastic. I'll go. I'll have to go over and join up on the Facebook group. So. Thank you so much for being here, Reena. I really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. I know it's going to be a wonderful adventure, and I'm looking forward to catching up with your podcast. And after you get it launched, we'll have to come back and talk about stories that you've had on there, and discover a few more dimensions about what you're doing, and kind
And
of
I'd
some
love
of
to
it.
have you on and share some of your kindness.
Oh, always, anytime. Just invite me on, and I'll be more than happy to join you. And Gabriel and I were talking about doing some more things together, and having conversation. And actually, Wendy has been a guest host on Gabriel's show. So it's just the pirate community is such a wonderful place to be, and so many amazing people here that I've met and connected with, and you know stay in conversation with. It's always amazing. And for yourself, doing events and things like this, I'm sure that that's a skill set that a lot of these people would love to have an opportunity to have a conversation with you. So keep going out doing great things and amazing stuff, and we look forward to the next adventure for Reena. So what enlightening, inspiring thought would you love to leave with the community today?
My favorite quote is, I was once beautiful and now I am myself.
I love that. Reena, thank you so much for being here. I have a fantastic weekend and a wonderful week and everything that you're doing. All the success in the world.
Thank you so much. Back to you.
Appreciate that. And always, thank you so much for being here in the community. If you like and share and comment, I would really appreciate it. It'd mean a lot to me. And also, if you're in the community, ask questions, just reach out. I'll always do my best to respond and react and provide some answers and some value. So thank you so much. Kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you enjoy the day. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.